The Rudy Valley Hour from Radio City, New York, with Maurice Evans, Bill Robinson, Richard Haydn, Jim Moran.
Hi-ho, everybody. This is Rudy Valley and Company. Were we given to superlatives, as we sometimes are, we would classify tonight's lineup of interesting people as follows. The greatest Shakespearean actor of our time,
Maurice Evans.
an old friend currently appearing as Falstaff in his own production of Henry IV, who will do a scene for us from that distinguished work. In addition to Mr. Evans, and in the interests of variety, we bring you, too, the greatest of tap dancers,
Bill Robinson.
Mr. Bojangles of Harlem, the man who taught Shirley Temple to dance, take some time off from rehearsing the new swing version of Gilbert and Sullivan's Mikado to pay us a visit. The next superlative on our list is the greatest of all fish mimics,
Richard Haydn.
As far as we know, not only the greatest fish mimic, but the only one. Mr. Haydn, who adds much to the enjoyment of Noel Coward's current set to music, was with us 2 weeks ago. He returns tonight with another of his fishy lectures. Fourth superlative,
Jim Moran.
a man with one of the most unusual stories we've ever heard. Of Mr. Moran, more later. Once over lightly, Graham.
Maurice Evans, Bill Robinson, Richard Haydn, Jim Moran.
All members in good standing of...
The Rudy Valley Hour, Act One, presented by the makers of Royal Desserts.
My friends, I've enjoyed your company. We've had a pleasant chat, discussing this and that, and most regretfully, I say please pardon me. It's way past my dreaming time. Good night, I've got to go. I'm late for my date on Moonlight Avenue. It's way past my dreaming time. So long and cheerio. I've got some important dreaming to do. Why should I stay wide awake when I get such a heavenly break from the moment that I doze off until my alarm clock goes off? The evening has been so gay, I hate to rush away. I'd stay, but it's way past my dreaming time. We're all having so much fun. Too bad you have to run. It's just 2 o'clock. The party's just begun. So stay just another hour. Don't turn the party sour. Your dreams will all disappear with a song. Please let me say just one thing, though it's none of my business, I know. You don't know what you are missing when deep in your dreams you're kissing. Well, maybe you're right at that. Hey, boy, get my coat and hat. Let's go, 'cause it's way past our dreaming time.
Presenting now Maurice Evans as Sir John Falstaff in a scene from his production of Henry IV, currently attracting large and enthusiastic audiences to the St. James Theatre. Mr. Evans' unforgettable portrayal of King Richard II in 1937, his recently completed uncut version of Hamlet, and his present triumph in the role of the roistering Jack have one thing in common. They are endowed with the realization that Shakespeare was human and wrote with a racy quill for the pleasure of human beings. Tonight, buried under the mountainous costume that he wears on the stage, Mr. Evans brings us a tavern scene from the first act of Henry IV, with Edmund O'Brien as Prince of Wales, Emmett Rogers as Poins, and Henry Jones as Francis the bartender. Maurice Evans as Falstaff in Henry IV. Prince Hal and his drinking companion, Poins, await the arrival of Falstaff. Earlier that same evening, they had promised to assist Falstaff in a holdup on the highway. But instead of helping bibulous Jack, they let him accomplish the robbery alone. Whereupon these two young rakes disguised themselves and robbed the fat knight of his hard-earned booty. Back in the tavern, they are waiting to hear the Prince of Liars explain his part in the proceedings.
Drink round, brave boys, and never give or drink round, brave boys, as I have said before. Oh, Barney, he has sent to us a fresh reply, and swear that he will come and drink old England dry. Dry, 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 boys, dry. He swears he'll come and drink old England dry.
Biddy, come out of that fat room and lend me thy hand to laugh a little.
Where has been, Hal?
With 3 or 4 loggerheads amongst 3 or 4 score hogsheads. They take it already upon their salvation that though I be but Prince of Wales, yet I am king of courtesy. What? And tell me flatly, I am no proud Jack like Falstaff, no. And when I am king of England, I shall command all the good lads in Eastcheap. But I prithee, Ned, do thou stand in some by-room whilst I question my puny tapster, Francis, one that never spake any other English in his life than anon, sir, and do thou never leave off calling him, that his tale to me may be nothing but anon.
Francis?
Thou art perfect. Step aside there behind that arras, and I'll show thee a precedent.
Francis!
Anon, sir!
Come hither, Francis.
Oh, my lord the prince.
How old art thou, Francis?
Let me see. About Michaelmas next, I shall be your...
Francis!
Anon, sir!
Francis!
Anon, sir!
Francis! Away, you rogue! Dost thou not hear them call? Come hither, Poins.
Whatever this fellow should have fewer words than a parrot and yet the son of a woman.
Oh, my lord! Old Jack Falstaff and Bardolph are at the door. Shall I let them in?
Call in Falstaff. Call in Lean Jack. Call in Barebone. How now, my sweet creature of bombast? Where hast thou been?
A plague of all cowards, I say, and a vengeance too merry and our men. Give me a cup of sack, boy.
Anon, sir!
Give me a cup of sack, rogue.
Yes, sir.
Is there no virtue extant? A plague of all cowards. You rogue? There's lime in this sack.
No, sir.
There's nothing but roguery to be found in villainous man. Go thy ways, old Jack. Die when thou wilt. If manhood, good manhood, be not forgot upon the face of the earth, then I'm a shotten herring. There lives not 3 good men unhanged in England, and one of them is fat and grows old, God help the while. A bad world, I say. I would I were a weaver. I could sing psalms or anything. A plague of all cowards.
How now, Woolsack? What mutter you?
I am not a coward, answer me that. And Poins there.
Zoom, ye fat paunch, and ye call me coward, by the Lord, I'll stab thee.
I call thee coward, I'll see the damned ere I call thee coward. But I'd give £1,000 I could run as fast as thou canst. You're straight enough in the shoulder. You care not who sees your back. Call you that backing of your friends? A plague upon such backing. Give me them that'll face me. Give me a cup of sack. I'm a rogue if I've drunk today. A plague of all cowards still, say I.
What's the matter?
What's the matter? There be 4 of us here have ta'en £1,000 this day morning.
Where is it, Jack? Where is it?
Where is it? Taken from us it is. 100 upon poor 4 of us.
What, 100, man?
I'm a rogue if I'm not at half sword with a dozen of them 2 hours together. I've escaped by miracle. I'm 8 times thrust through the doublet, 4 through the hose, me buckler cut through and through, me sword hacked like a handsaw. Ecce signum. I never dealt better since I was a man. All would not do, a plague of all cowards.
What? Fought you with them all?
All? I know not what you call all. But if I fought not with 50 of them, I'm a bunch of radish. If there were not 2 or 3 and 50 upon poor old Jack, I'm no 2-legged creature.
Pray God you have not murdered some of them.
That's past praying for. I peppered 2 of them, 2 I'm sure I paid, 2 rogues in buckram suits. I tell thee what, Hal, if I tell thee a lie, spit in me face, call me horse. Thou knowest me old ward, here I lay, and thus I bore me point. 4 rogues in buckram let drive at me.
What? 4? Thou saidst but 2 even now.
4, Hal, I told thee 4.
Ah, he said 4.
These 4 came all affront and mainly thrusted me. I made me no more ado, but took all their 7 points in me target. Thus.
7? Why, there were but 4 even now.
In buckram?
Aye, 4. In buckram suit.
7 be these hilts, or I'm a villain else.
Prithee, let him alone, Ned. We shall have more anon.
You shall hear me, Hal.
Aye, and mark thee too, Jack.
Do so, for it is worth the listening to. These 9 in buckram that I told thee of,
So, 2 more already.
their points being broken,
Down fell their hose.
began to give me ground, but I followed me close, came in foot and hand, and with a thought, 7 of the 11 I paid.
Oh, monstrous! 11 buckram men grown out of 2.
But as the devil would have it, 3 misbegotten knaves in Kendall Green came at me back and let drive at me. For it was so dark, Hal, thou couldst not see thy hand.
These lies are like their father that begets them, gross as a mountain. Why, thou clay-brained guts, thou nutty-pated fool?
What are the mad? Are the mad? Is not the truth the truth?
How couldst thou know these men in Kendall Green when it was so dark thou couldst not see thy hand?
Eh?
Come, tell us your reason. What sayest thou to this?
Come. Your reason, Jack. Your reason.
What, upon compulsion? Soon's are either at the Stopado and all the racks in the world. I wouldn't tell you on compulsion. What give you a reason on compulsion? If reasons were as plentiful as blackberries, I'd give no man a reason upon compulsion. Aye?
I'll be no longer guilty of this sin. This sanguine coward, this bed-presser, this horseback breaker, this huge hill of flesh.
Blood, you starveling! You dried neat's tongue, you elf skin, you stockfish! Oh, for breath to utter what is right there. Your tail is yard, your sheath, your bow case, you vile standing tuck.
Well, breathe a while and then to it again. We 2 saw you 4 set on 4 and bound them and were masters of their wealth. Mark now how a plain tale shall put you down. Then did we 2 set on you 4, and with a word outfaced you from your prize, and have it, yea, and can show it to you here in the house.
God bless my soul.
And Falstaff, you carried your guts away as nimbly, with as quick dexterity, and roared for mercy, and still run and roared as ever I heard bull come. What trick, what device canst thou now find out to hide thee from this open and apparent shame?
Come, let's hear, Jack. What trick hast thou now?
By the Lord, lads, I knew ye as well as he that made ye. But, hear you, my masters, hear you. Was it for me to kill the heir apparent? Should I turn upon the true prince? Aye, thou knowst I'm as valiant as Hercules, but beware instinct. The lion will not touch the true prince. Instinct is a great matter. I was now a coward on instinct. But, by the Lord, lads, I'm glad you have the money. Gallants, lads, boys, hearts of gold, all the titles of good fellowship come to you. What shall we be merry? Shall we have a play extempore?
A play? Content. And the argument shall be thy running away.
Ah, no more of that, Hal, and thou lovest me. But tell me, Hal, art thou not terribly feared, thou being heir apparent? Thou'lt be horribly chid tomorrow when thou comest to thy father. If thou lovest me, practice an answer.
Well, do thou act as my father and examine me on the particulars of my life.
Shall I? Content. This chair shall be my state, this dagger my scepter, and this cushion my crown. Give me a cup of sack to make my eyes look red, that it may be thought that I've wept.
Well, here is my leg.
And here is my speech. Now, Harry, I do not only marvel where thou spendst thy time, but also how thou art accompanied. That thou art my son, I have partly thy mother's word, and partly my own opinion. If then thou be son to me, here lies the point. Why, being son to me, art thou so pointed at? For, Harry, now do I not speak to thee in drink, but in tears, not in pleasure, but in passion, not in words only, but in woes also. Company, villainous company, hath been the spoil of thee. And yet there is a virtuous man whom I've often noted in thy company, but I know not his name.
What manner of man in it, like your majesty?
A good, portly man, if faith and a corpulent, of a cheerful look, a pleasing eye, and a most noble carriage. And I remember there, his name is Falstaff.
Ooh.
If that man should be lewdly given, he deceiveth me. For, Harry, I see virtue in that Falstaff. Him keep with, the rest banish. And now tell me, thou naughty varlet, tell me, where hast thou been this month?
Dost thou speak like a king? Here, do thou stand for me, and I'll play my father.
What, depose me? If thou dost it half so gravely, half so majestically, both in word and matter, hang me up for the heels for a rabbit sucker or a poulter's hair.
Well, here I am set.
And here stand I, judge my masters.
Now, Harry, whence come you?
Nay, noble lord, from Eastcheap.
The complaints I hear of thee are grievous.
Blood, my lord, they are false.
Thou art violently carried away from grace. There is a devil haunts thee, in the likeness of an old fat man. A ton of man is thy companion. Why dost thou converse with that trunk of humors?
Oh.
That bolting hutch of beastliness? That swollen parcel of dropsies?
No.
That father ruffian, that vanity in years? Wherein is he good but to taste sack and drink it? Wherein cunning but in craft? Wherein crafty but in villainy? Wherein villainous but in all things? Wherein worthy but in nothing?
I would your grace would take me with you. Who means your grace?
That villainous, abominable misleader of youth, Falstaff. That old white-bearded Satan.
My lord, the man I know.
I know thou dost.
But to say I know more harm in him than I know in myself would to say more than I know. That he is old, the more's the pity. His white hairs to witness it. If sack and sugar be a fault, God help the wicked. If to be old and merry be a sin, then many an old host I know is damned. If to be fat to be hated, then Pharaoh's lean kinder to be loved. No, my good lord, banish bard, banish poins. But for sweet Jack Falstaff, true Jack Falstaff, valiant Jack Falstaff, and therefore more valiant being as he is old Jack Falstaff, banish not him thy Harry's company. Banish not him thy Harry's company.
Open in the name of the law.
Banish plump Jack and banish all the world.
I do, I will.
Oh, my lord, the sheriff and all the watch are at the door. They've come to search the place. They followed certain robbers to this house. Shall I let him in?
No! Go, Falstaff. Hide thee behind the arras. The rest, walk up above. Now, my masters, for a true face and a good conscience.
Both of which I have had, but their date is out, and therefore I'll hide me.
When it comes to desserts, who's the most difficult person in your family to please? Most women say, my husband. Yes, men want dessert that's really satisfying as well as delicious. And here's a favorite that just hits the spot. Royal chocolate pudding. Velvety smooth pudding, creamy rich. With that delicious, rich, chocolatey flavor every man appreciates. And royal chocolate pudding is ideal for children, too. A tempting, satisfying treat for all the family. For royal is made with arrowroot, a pure, fine starch that's easy to digest and helps give children needed energy for winter days. Arrowroot cooks quickly, too. Makes royal chocolate pudding one of the easiest desserts in the world to prepare. There's no fussing with a lot of ingredients, no bothersome measuring or mixing. In 5 minutes, royal chocolate pudding is completely cooked, rich and even, with no starchy lumps to spoil its goodness. You get satiny, smooth pudding with a flavor as rich and tempting as fine chocolate ice cream. Try Royal, America's favorite chocolate pudding. Notice how economical it is, how easy to prepare. Enjoy the other Royal puddings, too. creamy vanilla, and rich, mellow butterscotch, all made with wholesome arrowroot. That's Royal, R-O-Y-A-L. Buy all 3 Royal puddings from your grocer tomorrow.
I'm a-singing in the saddle, singing all the way, for the roundup is over today. I'm a-singing in the saddle to the stars above. I'm a-heading for heaven and love. To the rhythm of the hoofs, I'm a-humming. Get along, old pal. There's a prairie gal who knows I'm a-coming, waiting beside the old corral. I'm a-singing in the saddle, guide me from above. I'm a-heading for heaven and love. Two weeks ago, you met Richard Haydn, currently appearing with Beatrice Lilly and Noel Coward's Set to Music. Mr. Haydn, as Edwin Carp, fish mimic extraordinary, allowed us to look deep into the hearts and minds of some of the better-known denizens of the deep, a favor, incidentally, that he grants to the audience at the Coward Review each night. This evening, he returns to us for a second lecture. Enter now that friend of the fish, Richard Haydn.
Good evening, one and all. In the past, I have had the great pleasure of introducing myself to you through my powers of fish mimicry. Tonight, variety being the spice of life, I want to bring to your notice one of the most startling phenomena of the aquatic world. In my last chat, I told you about my piscatorial pet, Eric the conger eel. Tonight, I want to tell you about another of the jewels, if not the jewel, of my fish collection. Fleurette, the whistling flounder. The flounder, fluke, or whiff, as it is sometimes called, is known to you all. But has it ever occurred to you that flounders can whistle? I'll be bound the answer is no. And so I will give you a faint inkling as to the supernatural powers of whistling flounders. This feat is achieved by means of a single row of obtuse teeth and a slightly cleft palate. In the autumn, the whistle of the flounder is like this. A sad note, you will note. In a minor key, well in keeping with the season of autumnal tints, and redolent with an atmosphere of decay. With the coming of spring, the whistle gains strength and is something like this. It is highly delightful to note, in passing, that during the mating season, the flounder or fluke is one of the noisiest fish you could wish to hear. Once spring is over, whistling languishes to a marked degree, and when addressed by its mate, the flounder or fluke is rarely heard to whistle more than 2 bars. The same thing occurs in the case of hake, haddock, and smelt. Except, of course, that they cannot whistle. The method by which I came by Fleurette, my own particular whistling flounder, makes excellent hearing, and I will reconstruct the scene for you by means of the spoken word. Some years ago, one damp Tuesday in January, I found myself, quite by chance, on the end of a jetty just outside Flushing. It was here that Fleurette was captured by my companion, who chanced to be none other than my little daughter Wilsie. Wilsie, I can hear you saying? What a quaint name for a daughter. And believe me, quaint is right. This interest in corruption, and by corruption I of course refer to the name of Wilsie and not to my daughter, came about in the following delightful manner. My wife, being a woman, was very anxious that our offspring should be called either Winnie or Elsie, whilst I was all for it being called Nora. But my wife's insistence resulted in it being known by a happy combination of the names Winnie and Elsie, to wit, Wilsie, and not Nora. It was really a lucky quirk of fate that this decision was come to, as later we discovered that Nora was the name of the milkman's horse. As a girl, Wilsie is a quaint child. Being 14.5 years of age, and having outgrown her strength, she is inclined to be leggy, and is best described as plain without being attractive. But to return... to get back to that knowing little denizen of the deep, who is now affectionately known as Fleurette. I have Fleurette here with me this evening, but as she is insanely jealous of me, as well as being slightly M-O-O-D-Y, I had to pick and choose my words when in her company, as S-H-E is as knowing as an ape, if not more S-O. Fleurette has flabbergasted more flounder or whiff experts than I care to mention. This is due to the fact that in her training I have relied solely on the bel canto method. The proof of the pudding being in the eating, I will now get Fleurette to whistle the Bluebells of Scotland for you, which, incidentally, she does exceedingly W-E-double-L. You will perhaps have some smattering as to her versatility when I tell you that among her whistling repertoire, Fleurette numbers the Brahms Concerto, 2 foxtrots, a solo for woodwind, and part of a fugue. But now for the Bluebells of Scotland. Come now, Fleurette, whistle for the dinky Mike. Come now, Fleurette, come on now. You know you can if you try. Oh, there. I said she was moody.
Children need extra energy for chilly February days, and you can help them get it. For dessert, give them delicious, nourishing Royal chocolate pudding, with the tempting chocolate flavor everybody loves. Please remember, Royal is made with wholesome arrowroot, and that means it's easy to digest, cooks quickly, always turns out smooth and velvety, with a flavor as delicious as fine chocolate ice cream. Try Royal, America's most popular chocolate pudding, and enjoy the other Royal puddings, Royal Butterscotch and Royal Vanilla, all economical, all creamy, wholesome, and delicious. That's Royal, R-O-Y-A-L. Buy 3 packages tomorrow. The Rudy Valley Hour will continue after a brief pause for station identification.
Stations having given their right names, we proceed with Bill Robinson and Jim Moran in
The Rudy Valley Hour, Act 2, presented by the makers of Fleischmann's High Vitamin Yeast.
But no, I am not blind. My eyes have traveled everywhere in hope that I might find a creature half so fair. If there is someone lovelier than you, by all that's beautiful, such beauty can be true. A medley of songs from Revenge with Music. and the music fill me with flaming desire, setting my being completely on fire. You and the night and the music thrill me, but will we be one after the night and the music are done? Until the pale light of dawning and daylight, our hearts will be throbbing guitars. Morning may come without warning and take away the stars. If we must live for the moment, love till that moment is through. After the night and the music die, will I It takes all kinds of people and all kinds of jobs to make a world like this. It takes trapeze performers and bakers, butchers and bartenders, bankers and barbers. Unique in his selection of a career is a certain Jim Moran. In his time, Jim has been a harvest hand, a musician, an aviator, a longshoreman, and a newspaperman. A young man of considerable personality and a lot of ideas, Mr. Moran felt that such callings were a bit too prosaic for his active imagination. Today, Jim Moran is a professional screwball, bizarre and unpredictable. One day he may be hunting sharks from a blimp in the Caribbean, and the next, harpooning whales in the Arctic. We found him to be a highly interesting person. We think you will, too. Here is Jim Moran, professional screwball. Jim, how does one go about being a professional screwball?
That's easy, Rudy. I just unscrew the inscrutable.
You what?
I just unscrew the inscrutable. But honestly, Rudy, I kind of resent being called a screwball. My theory is that there's too much dignity, too much pomp in the world today and not enough laughs. So I'm just dedicating my life to sticking a pin in the bombastic, punching holes in stuffed shirts, and picking up a few chuckles while I do it.
Be careful you don't get sued for doing it. Sounds like a very worthwhile calling. How did you happen to get into it?
Well, Rudy, I've always had an active scientific mind, and I've been interested in psychiatric experiments of one kind or another. Then, too, I've always had a lot of sand in my shoes. I've always wanted to know what goes on the other side of the fence.
Yes, the far-off pastures always have greener fields.
Exactly. The urge to wander hit me when I was just 11 years old, and I've been roaming ever since. That's how I happen to be interested in unscrewing the inscrutable.
And just what does this unscrewing the inscrutable really mean?
Well, if you analyze it closely, it doesn't mean a thing. But it's a kind of a nice phrase, don't you think? I just use it as an explanation for doing things like selling ice boxes to Eskimos.
I see. I suppose you have sold an ice box to an Eskimo?
If you think you're kidding, you're as crazy as I am, Rudy. I have sold an icebox to an Eskimo. A bunch of us were sitting around one day eating maraschino parfaits and banana splits and stuff, some boys in Washington, and talk kind of veered around to salesmanship. Somebody mentioned the fact that a fellow we all knew could possibly sell iceboxes to Eskimos, and I told him I thought I could, too.
What made you think that you could do it?
Left-handed clocks.
Left-handed clocks made you think that you could sell an icebox to an Eskimo?
Sure, it's simple.
It certainly is.
You see, once I sold left-handed clocks to barbers to hang on the rear walls so that the customers could look in a mirror and tell what time it was. And while I was at that, I used to sell advertising space on the barbershop ceilings, too.
All this in preparation for selling an icebox to an Eskimo?
Well, it was pretty good training, Rudy.
Did you ever sell your icebox?
Sure. I traveled all over the Yukon Territory and Alaska and finally landed my man at a Klavik on the Arctic Ocean and closed the deal with him.
Just as simple as that.
Yeah, it's just as simple as that. I traveled 5,000 miles to make that sale, but I made it. There's only one thing, though.
What was that?
Well, after the Eskimo bought the icebox, he got awful sore because he couldn't get the Valley program on it.
Well, that must have been quite an expensive sale.
No, it wasn't. I made quite a lot of money on that trip. Spent it, though. You see, when I was up there, I picked up a pair of snowblind fleas, and then I went down to Hollywood and sold them to Paramount Pictures.
What did Paramount want with snow-blind fleas?
Well, they were happy to get them. You see, they were making a picture that had to have some fleas in it, but all of their fleas were getting Klieg eyes, so mine fitted in swell.
Well, anyway, it's a good story.
It's a true story, Rudy. I sold those 2 fleas for $750. I also brought back 220 pounds of ice, which I hacked from a glacier up there. And I've sold $575 worth of that ice, and I've still got 150 pounds left, and I'm still broke.
Haven't you anything else to sell at the present time?
Yes, I have.
What?
A whale?
You've got a whale for sale?
Yes, I have. I'm trying to interest the New York World's Fair people in opening a whalatorium to exhibit the whale in.
I see. Carrying a whale to Whalen.
So good, Rudy. There's a lot of money in it, Rudy. I plan to sell advertising space on that whale's back.
Well, now, to get rid of the whale for a moment.
I wish I could, but I can't sell that whale. I haven't sold any glacier ice either in a long while. And you won't believe this, but this is a fact. I've been living on raw carrots and rice for the past 2 weeks. It's really tough here in New York.
Well, they're bound to break for anybody with your imagination. Tell me, Jim, have you got any more of these fantastic schemes up your sleeve?
Yes, I have, Rudy.
Well, tell us about them.
Oh, I would like to tell you about them before I do them, and then I don't know whether the other people would be interested in hearing about them anyway.
Well, we're interested, and I hope if you do any more stunts, you'll come back and tell us about them.
It's a deal, Rudy. Then maybe I'll get some butter to put on those carrots.
I hope so, Jim.
Have you had this idea? Have you thought that vitamins in one form were just as good as vitamins in another?
Why, yes, I have. Well, aren't they?
No, and for this reason. Many people, because of slow digestion, cannot make full use of the vitamins they eat.
Then a person like that could eat quite a few vitamins and not feel any great improvement?
Yes, it's very possible. And, of course, lots of other people do not eat enough vitamins to start with. Studies show that many families do not get enough vitamins from their regular meals.
And what happens when they don't?
They're apt to have harder colds, and they're inclined to have poor digestion and get tired out and nervous before they should. So please remember this. There is now an improved way to get vitamins, a way that helps us make fuller use of them. And it's an easy, economical way, too. It's simply to eat 2 cakes of Fleischmann's new high-vitamin yeast before 2 of your meals every day. Organic food supplies you with liberal amounts of 4 essential vitamins in a particularly helpful form.
But why is it more helpful?
Because of the remarkable booster action of this fresh, active yeast. By helping to speed up slow digestion, this Fleischmann's yeast promotes the assimilation of the vitamins in the diet, helps you get the full benefit of the vitamins you eat.
And does it give us a lot of vitamins, too?
It certainly does. 2 cakes a day, eaten before meals, provide all the extra amounts the average person needs of A, the resistance-building vitamin, of B, the nerve vitamin, of D, the bone vitamin, and also a liberal amount of G, the vitality vitamin.
Well, what's the best way to eat it?
Just plain or stirred up in a little water or milk. Eat 1 cake a half hour before breakfast or lunch, the other cake a half hour before supper. Do this faithfully, and see if soon you don't have an easier time with colds, if your digestion isn't better, and if you don't feel more vigorous and energetic. Begin tomorrow. Get from your grocer a supply of Fleischmann's new high-vitamin yeast.
Tout tremblant, désespéré, délirant, pourquoi faut-il avouer tristement? J'ai lutté, j'ai tout fait pour t'oublier. Je te revois et je suis enchaîné. J'ai peur de tes yeux captivants. J'ai peur de tes baisers brûlants et je frémis en songeant qu'un jour je t'aurai à moi pour toujours. Tu m'as si bien ensorcelé, de toi je ne puis me passer. Je t'aime tant, mais je sois de toi et je voudrais te fuir. Pourquoi? De toi et je voudrais te fuir. If we were given the task of defining the essential elements that make for success in this slightly mad industry known as show business, it would take us some time before we could come up with the answers. But if we were asked to give an example of just what we were driving at, the answer would be easy. That answer would be Bill Robinson. Bill's talents combine the elements of success more completely than those of most entertainers around here today. Dean of the tap dancers, singer of songs, comedian, and personality, Bojangles is soon to embark on a new venture on Broadway when he takes over the role of the Emperor in Michael Todd's forthcoming Hot Mikado, a swing version of the Gilbert and Sullivan favorite. In addition, he is soon to appear in the famous Cotton Club's new revue. We give you now Mr. Bojangles of Harlem, Bill Robinson. Well, Bill, what's the good word?
Same as always been, Mr. Valet. Never shake dice with a stranger or with strange dice.
Is that all? What's new up in Harlem?
Oh, I should say not. You know, the other night I had the chance to witness a good poker game between one of our Harlem slickers and a little southern boy from Alabama. They played poker for about an hour, and finally the Harlem boy looked over, says, I'll open the pot for 3.5. Southern boy says, I'll stay. They each drew one card. Harlem boy says, I'll bet 2.5. Southern boy says, I'll call that 2.5 and raise you $2 more. Harlem boy says, I'll see that $2 and raise you 15. Southern boy says, I'll call the 15 and raise you 5. Harlem boy says, I'll tap you. Southern boy says, what do you mean by tapping? He says, brother, I bet you all the money you got in front of you. So the Southern boy has about $73 in front of him. He picks it up, plays with it, and counts it. Finally, he threw it in the pot and looked at the Harlem slicker. He says, brother, I call you. Harlem slicker says, 4 aces. Southern boy reached and got his razor and say, what is your next highest card? I was walking down Lenox Avenue, Mr. Root, and I stopped in front of the Savoy, and I saw a funny thing. A colored boy walked out, and he was putting on the Ritz for me, and there stood his girl, and he was trying to give an argument about where she should go, and she's one of them that wouldn't stand for it. So she reached over and grabbed him by the shoulder. She says, sweet papa, let me get you told. She says, you don't leave me alone. You don't even phone. You just as carefree as the bird in the sky. Now, what goes up must come down. Daddy, you've been flying too high. Now, it's all over town. You're chasing around. And I don't want to sit home and cry. Remember, what goes up must come down. Sweet Papa, you have been flying too high. Now you ought to get your walking papers, but I think it's too late. Sweet Mama knows you real well. Now when you through cutting capers, you'll break down my gate just to ring my front doorbell. Now go have your fling. Don't you miss a thing. Sweet Mama will see you down to earth by and by. Remember, what goes up, Sweet Papa, must come down. Mama will see you on the late turn. My bunions is going up now. Look out. Switch it. Here's what we call a crescento. Crescento. Play it, Mr. Rudy. Now, what goes up absolutely must come down. Lindbergh came down. Da 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 da.
Bill, are you going to do any dancing in that new swing, Mikado?
Oh, I might cut a couple of rugs or two.
What will the show be like?
Well, I'm telling you the truth, Mr. Valet. I think it'll be the greatest thing that you ever witnessed. You know, I just got in town a day ago, and I only had one rehearsal, and I don't know very much about it. But do you happen to know that song they call When the Flowers Bloom in the Spring? Well, if I had to do that song, the show open tomorrow, I would have to do it my way, something like this. Isn't that gorgeous? Oh, magnificent. My, the flowers that bloom in the spring, ha ha, the flowers that bloom in the spring. The flowers that bloom in the spring, hee hee, the flowers that bloom in the spring, ho ho, the flowers that bloom in the spring, hee hee, the flowers that bloom in the spring. That's my trumpet. Oh, Rudy, when I learn this thing, I'll ruin him. Get out now. Harlem, here I come. Now, here's the way I like to move. I bet Gilbert and Sullivan couldn't do this one.
For those extra vitamins that people so often need, go to your grocer. Get Fleischmann's new high-vitamin yeast. This tonic food gives you rich supplies of 4 essential vitamins at low cost. But even more important, you get these vitamins in a particularly helpful form. Eat 1 cake before 2 of your meals every day. Then you get all the average person needs of vitamins A, B, and D, also a liberal amount of vitamin G. And you can be surer that you'll get the full benefit of the vitamins you eat, because this fresh, active yeast, by acting to tone up slow digestion, helps the assimilation of vitamins. Your 2 cakes will give you 6,200 units of resistance-building vitamin A, 300 of nerve vitamin B, 800 of sunshine vitamin D, and more than 100 of vitality vitamin G. Eat one cake a half hour before breakfast or lunch, another a half hour before supper. See if you don't feel more vigorous and energetic. Get some Fleischmann's high vitamin yeast.
It's way past my dreaming time. Good night, I've got to go. I'm late for my dream on Moonlight Avenue. It's way past my dreaming time. So long and cheerio. I've got some important dreaming to do. Why should I stay wide awake when I get such a heavenly break from the moment that I doze off until my alarm clock goes off?
Next week for comedy, the eminent Jimmy Schnozzola Durante, who is gaining fresh laurels for himself in the new Broadway musical hit, Stars in My Eyes. For drama, Judith Anderson, one of our own favorite actresses. To assist them, a goodly company of interesting people. The Valley Company opened today at Lowe State Theater for a week's engagement. This is Rudy Valley saying good night.
That on the program was You're Flying Too High, written by Ted Koehler and Ruby Bloom from the New Cotton Club Review. This is the National Broadcasting Company.